Do you favor so-called luxury taxes like meals, lodging, cigarettes have been put on the table, over real estate and personal property taxes to meet revenue shortfalls, or other ways like cutting services in a budget year that's tight like this one?
Actually, what concerns me, I read a little bit, like I said, in the paper, and you know, all of my information comes from the paper now, but what concerns me about that is a luxury tax really fair? It's still a tax. So someone's getting taxed. I have a real concern with the meals tax, because if you do increase the meals tax right now, the restaurants in the town right now that are in the town have already been basically damaged or hurt by the restaurants out on the corridor. So you're putting an extra burden on those people who are trying to establish a business and make a living. As far as the tax for the automobile stickers, that one I'm not so, you know, that's kind of across the board. So when you get to that point, you know, you got to really decide. I personally think that you don't cut services. You go back and you review all your programs, you review your services, you look at things that you can do more efficiently, and I believe you can honestly balance your budget that way. Now, you won't be able to balance your budget at $300,000 and $400,000 clips, but at $5,000 and $10,000 clips, you can eventually get to where you need to be. So it's a mixed bag. Am I in favor of real estate and personal property taxes? At this time, no. But if I was the mayor and we were at a point to where I honestly could stand in front of the public people and say, we have become as efficient as we possibly can, we've done the best we possibly can, then I would be the first person to raise my hand and say we need to raise taxes. At this time, I don't feel that we've done that. I don't feel, and you know, there's multiple reasons why. Some, maybe they never took that approach. I don't know, but in my opinion, until you get to that point, I think you work with what you have.
Well, at this time, I'm not interested in raising meals taxes. I think that would be a negative impact on the town businesses due to the fact that we'd be charging 5 or 6 cents tax for the corridor, which would be the 522 area, would only be charging 4. So I think that would be a very negative impact. I also feel that a cigarette tax it's fine to have a cigarette tax, but it's only getting a few people in comparison to the actual majority of the people in Front Royal. I know smoking cigarettes is something I've never done for 45 years. But again, just because I don't smoke doesn't mean that we ought to put the burden on the smokers. And again, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that I'm not in favor of a cigarette tax, but again, I think that we ought to make it more uniform if it's going to be a luxury tax, not only just to pigeonhole or pull people who smoke cigarette and make them pay the big majority of the cost of the tax increase.
What will your priorities in leading the town through the next 2 years be?
Well, first, like I said earlier, my first priority would be definitely get the council organized and try to get them in effect. One of the problems with any organization, whether it's the town council or a business, if your leadership is not functional, it becomes a trickle-down effect. Then your mid-level staff becomes a little dysfunctional because of the lack of leadership, and then it goes down until it basically affects the services that are out on the streets. So my first goal would be to try to get the council organized, and then which in turn would follow that process down. Secondly, I think the services for the citizens of the town. You know, sometimes when you're out here and you're looking at the big ideas and the big things, which need to be looked at because you do need to look out for the future of the town and future revenue and things like that. But you also need to look at the basic services. I mean, people in the town of Front Royal, and I speak for myself, I can't speak for the people, but I want the basic services to be right. I want my trash picked up, I want my lights to cut on when I cut my switch, I want my water to flow, and I want to feel safe in my neighborhoods with the law enforcement. So you need to also, you can't lose perspective of the little things, and little things is what makes things right. So you go back, you work with the basic services, and that's where you can also dovetail into the whole thing of trying to cut wasteful programs and things that aren't as efficient, provide good services, look at the big things in the same time to try to level out how we're going to fund things in the future. And from that perspective, you move forward.
You've been in office for 2 years. What are your priorities leading the town through 2 more years if you're reelected?
Well, my biggest priority now is, one of them is to complete the projects that we have already started, such as Royal Village. We want to get Royal Village finished up, and hopefully we'll get that done in the next several months. I'm hoping to get Happy Creek Road built this summer. It's going to be probably a 12 to 18 months project, depending on the contractor. I'd like to get that completed. I want to continue to do the tourism. I think tourism is very vital in the community due to the fact that that's what brings in most of our people for the meals taxes and the lodging taxes in the Front Royal. I want to keep the downtown looking properly and trimmed with the hanging baskets that we've had so many good comments about over the last several years that we've had those. And like I said before, I walk Main Street quite often on weekends, and that's one of the biggest things that we have comments about is how beautiful the town is with the hanging baskets. But with that, I'd like to see us continue to maintain our streets, and we also are in the process of engineering a secondary treatment plan. I'd like to see that come to fruition, if possible, in the next 2 to 3 years.
The wastewater treatment plant.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What is your attitude towards the development of solar power production here, and if positive, what should the town's role in it be?
My attitude is it is positive. I think that I'm 100% behind the fact of the solar project out at the EDA. I think the job, if they can do the 100 jobs in the 180 days or that, I think that's perfect. I mean, it's great. We need jobs in Front Royal. That's one of the things I'm hearing when I'm out on the street is, you know, a lot of people want the jobs. They need the jobs. We need good jobs in the town of Front Royal. So I'm all behind that. Now, of course, it's changed. The whole process has changed dramatically. When they were talking about an $18 million bond from the town of Front Royal, I was absolutely adamantly against that because I'm a firm believer of public-private partnerships, but not a firm believer of private-public partnerships. So that's a different story. If the town could benefit from the sale of the solar power, which seems to be the issue now, is will the town buy that solar power? And I guess they need that commitment. So, but it all needs to be reviewed. I mean, the solar power, the concept, the factory, the solar power fields, I'm all for buying the power. I think you need to sit back and review all the issues. Is it worth buying solar power if you're paying $1,000 more a megawatt or something to that effect? I don't know the quite megawatt per dollar ratio than what you can buy, hydropower for. As far as the concept, I'm there with it. I think there needs to be a lot more research done on the actual cost of it, because it's like medicine. You know, at the beginning it costs high, and then it may trickle out later, and that may be some kind of concept that you have to go with there. But as far as the actual EDA's progress right now, I think it's great, and I hope it does move forward to create some jobs for some town citizens.
What is your attitude towards the development of solar power production here, and if it is a positive one, what should the town's role be?
Well, I think it can be a very positive role in the community. The solar fields themselves can produce power that the town could purchase from whoever the provider is. It could be Ample Ohio, it could be somewhere Solar Verity or Solar Energy. We just don't know at this point, but I think it could be a big drawing card for the community, as well as I think it could be possibly connected with the solar fields is the actual construction of the solar panels and also the actual hangers that they hang them on. And if this comes to fruition, and as we've been told, it could bring as many as 100 to 200 jobs into the Front Royal area. And
it would be that production aspect that would keep the permanent high number of jobs after the initial construction phase, which would create jobs as well.
Yes, my understanding talking to some of them that were involved in trying to start the actual construction business or the corporation is that they want to be nationwide. They want to not only build for this particular unit here in Front Royal, but also solar fields that may be along the East Coast, even into Europe if possible. And this could turn out to be a real positive impact on the community as far as jobs are concerned.
I know there's been some questions about the cost per megawatt, but when you look at the cost in the proposals, people have to realize that it's peak hour cost, basically, which is a more expensive across the board, whether it be coal, hydro, or whatever.
Well, right now, by the time we get the power to Front Royal, we're paying somewhere around 72 cents per watt. And so when we talk about peak power, you can't rely on solar during the daytime 24 hours, 7 days a week. So you got to use it for peak power. And the peak powers, we're paying as much as $1, $1.10 per kilowatt hour in order to maintain that peak advantage that we need. And so that's our main concern. If we can buy it for, say, 9.2 or 9.5, that'll be a penny or maybe a little bit more in savings that we can save the actual consumers here in Front Royal on the cost of their power.
Over the long-term use of power, that adds up.
Oh, yes, it sure does.